We just have the purpose and expectations of meeting to talk about what we're hoping to accomplish in this hour that we have with you. Again, revisiting the purpose of the Alameda Lane repurposing to be consistent. The goals have not changed throughout the entirety of this project. Talking about what we heard last time and how we plan to address it. Talking about the evaluation, how we hope to engage you all, as well as what we're planning to do internally, as well as discuss timeline and next steps. And with that, I'll go over purpose and expectations. This slide is the same from our work group last time, just to talk about our purpose, our shared goals, and our commitments. I don't need to read this slide to you. However, I do want to say this evening, we would really hope to get out of this kind of an understanding of where we are with the demonstration, as well as an understanding in what evaluation looks like going forward, and be clear with our timeline on that as well. So the next steps for the demonstration is the purpose is to conduct additional safety and operational analysis in the field, and that will we will evaluate, and then that will inform our final design of this project. Last time, this is the biggest thing we heard from you, is the demonstration of the full lane. We will do a demonstration of the full lane reduction along Alameda, which will include Pennsylvania to Franklin. And this will allow us to have that safety analysis where we analyze and evaluate the project. And then we also hope during this time to continue communicating and engaging with community on how the demonstration is going, the perception of safety, which we will talk more about how we're going to evaluate it in this hour we have with you.
I want to just address a question in the chat really quickly. Amy had asked who are the 7 unknown users on this call. I'm not seeing, as I'm looking at the 15 people that are on the call, I'm seeing, identification for all of them. So I'm not seeing any unknown users. So do you see?
Yeah, I am. Maybe it's because it came from you, so you see them. I can see that it says unknown user, but I don't see them on yours.
Okay.
Probably because you had their email or something.
Maybe we could ask people to
Identify.
introduce themselves. Yeah.
Oh, sure. Do you want to?
Or in the chat. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks. And again, this meeting, I did get one of the council members did ask me if it was closed to the public. I think the approach we took is the same for that in-person meeting we had a while ago, which is it is not closed to the public. We want to have a good, productive conversation, so we did keep it small to the stakeholders, but we're not kicking anyone out or anything like that. So, good? Yep. Okay. Sorry, let me. Oh, why is it not working? Okay. The updated demonstration limits. So as I said, that is what we've changed here based on your feedback. So the initial one we are doing the full South Pennsylvania to Franklin as the lane reduction. So we've changed that. You can see details. We have done a roll plot, which is just basically the full, I'm sure you guys are interested in like the updated demonstration and what that design means. And we have included that on our website. The website is very long URL, so I included the QR code. Brett is putting it in the chat. If you go down, you just have to scroll down just a little bit, and it says the design, like the design of the demonstration, and has a PDF link, which when it comes up on your screen, it's pretty large, but you can zoom in to see exactly what we're talking about and what the improvements, what are some of the pedestrian safety improvements, as well as lane reduction and what that entails. As you're listening to this, I know many of you are on your phones, but we are happy to answer questions about the design. So as we're talking, feel free to look at it if you're in a place to do that, or later on, you can also ask details about that.
And we will also share the slide deck after as well.
Yep. So I did get an email this morning just concerning the work group feedback, and I just want to say, well, I did read it and understand the notes there. I just want to kind of reiterate what we heard and how we're addressing what we heard in more of an overarching picture, I think, where we definitely heard, and I already mentioned this, that the demonstration will extend to the original lane reduction limits. And again, this really allows us to evaluate the whole project in real time. And will definitely inform a final design. We also had concerns about the merging conditions quite a bit last time, and we just want to reiterate here that the length of the transition areas and how we merge, and again, this is kind of featured in that role plot, are just per national best practices. So we have standards that we follow. Happy to answer more questions about that. But there will be signage that, makes drivers aware of a new travel pattern and those merges. And then signal timing will be part of this project, so that all the signals will be timed to really accommodate best flow, try and help with congestion, pedestrian crossings, that sort of thing. And so I think, Brett, I don't know if I can have you talk now. Do you want to talk a little bit about the timing of the evaluation?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So we heard from the letter and the working group feedback last time about why are you doing only 3 months for evaluation or for normalization of traffic patterns. More time is always helpful, for sure. But for a project like this, that's going to change travel patterns so clearly, we think only 3 months provides sufficient time for traffic patterns to normalize, given what we're trying to do here to efficiently evaluate the demonstration on an accelerated timeline for the project. And so just wanted to reiterate that we think the 3 months is a normalization period. There will likely, we probably won't, we're not going, as things have shaken out, I can say we're not collecting at that 90-day mark. Like we're just making sure that 3 months goes by, and we will be collecting data somewhere between 3 and 9 months after construction. And then of course, allowing a decent amount of time for time to go by to collect the crash data that we'll talk about in a second.
Yeah, and I want you to know that this presentation is heavy in us talking to you right now, but we'll pause for discussions in a minute or questions. The one thing that I did want to say, and I know we've heard feedback on this, that the evaluation should only focus on Alameda. We are not going to do that. Our biggest kind of concern, I would say at this point, and we've said this from the get-go, is the impact this project will have on side streets, such as Virginia, and we just don't, any project that we have evaluated does consider the neighborhood impacts and not just the street itself. And we will continue to do those as standard practice, as we do with other evaluations of our projects. All right, Brett, I'm going to hand it over to you, and then we'll open it up for some questions.
Yeah. So this slide should look somewhat familiar. Here's the updated demonstration proposal, now incorporating the working group's feedback, like Molly mentioned, to extend the demonstration lane reduction limits back to the original design limits that we had. And so that will be from Pennsylvania all the way to Franklin. You can see here the permanent, what we're calling the permanent improvements shown in blue. Those remain as what you saw in the last meeting. They include the designated left turn lanes at Pearl and Pennsylvania, some of the spot safety treatments aimed at the known crash patterns at specific locations, the RFB and crosswalk and pedestrian refuge island at Franklin, and then several other elements that we've already presented on and that are listed there on the left in blue. It also includes some of the treatments that we're trying to anticipate the mitigation of safety issues at Virginia and Downing, which is not on this map. And then what's new, as we've talked about for the demonstration elements here shown in orange, are the extended lane reduction limits, like I just said. This adds 2 additional intersections with the designated turn lanes at both Clarkson and Washington, bringing that total to 8 intersections now having designated turn lanes, just again, as was in the original design. You can also see the proposed pedestrian buffer between the travel lanes. That's item 2 here in orange called out. Now that's from Pearl to Franklin, extending the full limits of the original design. The ped refuge islands are still there now, or are all there now. And we actually are able to add 2 sections of mid-block on-street parking. They're shown in the orange for icon between Pennsylvania and Washington. So again, same as what we saw last time, but the extended limits and then showing all of the different treatments that are going along with those extended limits on here. So did we want to open it up for just if there's any clarifications on this?
And
Yeah.
there's some
Okay.
items in the chat.
Great. Yeah,
Why don't we address the chat first and then
Sure.
we'll open it up. If you guys could raise your hands, we're happy to have a conversation. But
Yeah, and I'm not sure if Amy can talk right
Okay.
now because of where you are. So Amy, if you can, certainly happy to speak up, but she's put quite a bit in the
Okay.
chat here that I think would be a good place to start. So from Amy, there was her first comment was disagreeing with only waiting 3 months for traffic to normalize, and then a question, how long did we wait to evaluate York's road diet?
Mhm.
So that maybe we could start with that.
Yeah.
we're still evaluating York's road diet. but
We're still finalizing that we're just getting those evaluation results in. I'll have to look back at the exact time that we waited for
So
York's Road.
I can say this is following a different protocol for us because it is a demonstration. Typically in our previous projects, we wait at least a year. This project, because it has bond funding, mostly because it has bond funding attached, we have to spend this money by a certain date. So we don't have the full luxury of time of a year to wait on this one, on implementation or evaluation.
From Masha, is there an estimate on how long the installation would take?
Great question. Our estimation right now is between the Alameda lane reduction work, the minor signal work that will occur, and the RFB crossing work that will occur at Alameda and Franklin. We're estimating right now between 2 and 3 months, maybe even way quicker. To be honest, I think it's a conservative estimate. That you will see some amount of work being done. That does not mean Alameda is going to be closed for 2 or 3 months. In fact, we're going to be pushing lane closures to a minimum during construction. But just in general, you'll probably over the course of 2 up to 3 months, you'll see crews out there doing work on a phased basis.
Okay, and then 2 really good clarification comments. I'll just kind of not combine them, but they go together in this as relates to side streets. stakeholders, this is from Amy and from Tatiana, stakeholders are not saying don't consider side streets. We are saying we don't want safety on side streets to govern the safety on Alameda.
Sure.
That's one. Second, we ask that safety on Alameda not be downgraded due to Virginia. They're two pieces of the puzzle and should be looked at and adjusted accordingly. So good comments.
And I might just add to that, this is a great comment, and we'll get into that when we talk about the evaluation and what we're looking at. But yes, for sure. Thank you. Great comments.
Okay.
Anything else right now? I'll say let's keep it. We are going to dive into evaluation next. So if you all have anything about the design that you're concerned about with what you're seeing right now, I encourage us to have that conversation. We'll also have time at the end as well. But I don't know if there's any more comments about that.
Some questions of, this would be about design. What's the difference between the demonstration and construction documents that are already complete?
Oh, good question. So construction documents, yes, we already have some construction documents complete. The short answer to your question is the materiality with which we're doing it. The demonstration piece of it. It'll be more temporary materials that we're doing it in to test it out. That if it works, it'll then be replaced with permanent materials. So, but generally speaking, yeah, we're spending very minimal amount of work, changing what those construction documents are to be ready for the demonstration.
Okay, and this one is a yes. Will any signal timing adjustments be made as part of the demonstration?
Yes.
That's a yes.
Yeah.
This one's a great one that I think when we get into the evaluation, this is where we want to touch on that. It's really what would have to occur to consider the demonstration of failure?
Yep.
And are there any outcomes which would cause the project to be reversed? So that's, I think, more under evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
And then a final one here, how will you seek the input of business owners in the vicinity after the trial period? And I think we're doing a community survey that would include business.
Yep. So I think we should get to the evaluation list. Okay. And then, of course, you can still ask questions about this. So evaluation, I'm going to have Brett kind of talk about it, and Rebecca and I will chime in.
Great. Thanks, Molly. So last time we discussed evaluating the demonstration project against the DME goals, the project objectives, and some high-level measures of success. So what you see on the left here should look familiar to what we talked about during our last working group.
And DME is Denver Moves Everyone.
Sorry, yes.
No, it's okay. It's just for those that don't know our acronym soups over here. It's a guiding document that basically is what we do, how we prioritize projects and evaluate projects. So go ahead. Sorry, Brett.
Yeah. So yeah, the Denver Moves Everyone goals, project objectives, metrics of success. We talked about that last time. And now we're just going to dive a little bit deeper on those data collection metrics that we're actually looking at more specifically. So we'll be looking at both the DOTI internal quantitative metrics, but then also community-based kind of more qualitative metrics gathered through the community survey we've mentioned to understand perceived comfort and safety along Alameda and surrounding streets. So wanted to just go through these briefly and we can answer questions. So first and foremost, objective, as already been mentioned by a couple folks on the call, is that everyone arrives safely to their destination, because safety is the primary goal of this project. We'll collect data, of course, on crash type and severity, particularly monitoring the specific crash types we're looking to mitigate. Any speed changes that occurred, we're looking for speeds to go down on Alameda, certainly. And we have to supplement all these with some engineering safety observations actually on the street, going out there through the use even of some video, some long-term video to understand where there's near misses and other behavior changes along Alameda that we really need to be aware of as we make this change. And then secondly, as you can see in like the second metric of success, we also want to confirm that we're not, by doing these safety treatments, not unintentionally shifting some safety risks to nearby streets. So what we're talking about here is a sort of whack-a-mole, if you will, right? Like a safety whack-a-mole, we want to avoid that. And so certainly the whole reason we're doing this is for Alameda safety. We don't want to create safety issues on other streets. For example, Virginia, where you've got tons of bikes and peds crossing to Washington, right? So we just don't want to create a safety whack-a-mole here. We've already have a few mitigations planned on those streets, like I previously mentioned, such as the pedestrian and signal timing improvements at Downing in Virginia. But really, we need to confirm that those mitigations are also effectively addressing any of the secondary safety impacts that may result from the project, right? So it is looking at both. I will stress that we are looking at both. Now, if you go to the next slide. Our second objective is mitigating more of the operational impacts to the neighborhood. So the first one was very focused on safety and is first and foremost. The second one is operational impacts to the neighborhood and impacts to businesses. I've already seen a couple thoughts in the chat on that too. So what we'll be doing with this is monitoring how traffic shifts into the neighborhood streets and ensuring that these traffic volumes remain within our design expectations as outlined in the Denver Complete Streets guidelines that we have. Basically, we need to make sure and verify that we're not pushing more traffic to streets that aren't designed to carry that much traffic. We'll also be on Alameda monitoring queue lengths to see how they compare to our anticipated queues, like from our initial analysis. We'll also look at something we call gap availability. It's a very technical term, but essentially whether it's still reasonably possible to exit the side streets on Alameda after the Alameda changes, right? Because that in and of itself can lead to some safety issues too if we're not careful. And then thirdly, a third objective is to just provide more comfortable mobility options for everyone. And this is just speaking to the extent to which the project creates a more comfortable environment along Alameda and throughout the surrounding neighborhood. We'll measure this using observed bike and pedestrian activity at the intersections, as well as some perceived comfort and safety metrics from the community survey. So, and finally, I want to frame how we're going to consider all of this as a whole, right? So looking at all of this, and somebody already brought it up in the chat, and I really appreciate the nuance here, because this is how we're looking at it. So we fully acknowledge not every data point is going to move in the strictly positive direction, if you will, right? And that's expected, right? Some outcomes that we have are non-negotiable. Those are reducing serious bodily injury and fatal crashes, reducing the crash patterns on Alameda that we're looking to reduce. Those are some non-negotiables that we need to see happen with this project. But for other metrics, for example, say we see queues on Alameda that are slightly longer than we anticipated in our analysis. Maybe there's only slightly longer than anticipated, but everything else is working and it's a safe for Alameda. We have to interpret that in the broader context of all of the collected data, right? To see how we're actually affecting that bottom line safety of Alameda and the neighborhood. So to answer the person's question, it is the safety of the streets that is our primary non-negotiable there. And if those crash patterns go up, if SBIs and fatals go up, that would be an example for a cause for concern for us.
And SBI.
Serious bodily injury or fatalities. That's what we're tracking when we talk about the high injury network. The Division 0 high injury network is those serious bodily injury and fatal crashes. So just a kind of a note on that. We really need to interpret it in the broad spectrum of things. So when we come back and we see one of these things where it's like, oh, you have longer queues than anticipated, that's okay if we have one of those, right? Or a couple of those or whatever. We have to interpret that with the whole picture and how the project performed on a safety basis, which is the primary reason for the project.
And we're coupling our evaluation, which we've done with multiple projects before, with the data that, that Brett's group does and his team with our consultant will do with this added survey to give us more data. And we've done that before on things. It will be a very similar survey to what we've done previously with some of our bike projects and some of the other projects throughout the city.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think we'll pause there too. I'm sure there's a lot of questions or comments. Maybe Rebecca, you can read them out for us.
Sure.
And again, I see Christina's hands up.
Sure.
So maybe
let's go. Yeah.
Christina, do you want to speak? And then we'll see what the chat has to say.
I mean, it's just kind of further evaluating or further pointing out my comment, I think perception of comfort is really dangerous to base something off of. I think while we want everybody to feel safe, this idea of perception can skew survey results so much. We know that 4 to 3 lane conversions make streets safer, and they're effective, and they're one of the most affordable ways to do it. A perceived comfort is, I think, is very dangerous precedent to set, not only for this project, but for future projects. And I think that, again, this goes back to, and Brett, we had a conversation about this, and I think this was the complaint on your engineering license, this idea about 4 to 3 lanes being just as safe. It's just feeling less safe. I think it's really dangerous if we start talking about perceptions. We need to talk about actual safety here.
This is, I mean, that's an interesting comment for me, just because I feel like we are having this, the community survey is a way for us to actually capture what I think you all have been saying to us in a more subjective way than just having the data inform our decisions. Like the big, I think, thing which you guys noted was the buffer, and feeling like the buffer was really important. Currently, Alameda does not have a history of pedestrian crashes or cycling crashes along it, or very few, if it has any. And so I think our idea to address how important you all said that buffer was to do this community survey, because we recognize and understand that part of the safety is important to be able to like feel like you're crossing Alameda safer, even though crashes weren't happening. So for you, Christina, then to say that the perception of safety, like that's what we're talking about when we're talking about the perception of safety, is even though pedestrians and cycling crashes along Alameda have been very low, we've heard from the community that it is not comfortable, and we recognize it is not comfortable to travel along or across Alameda. So the survey is helping us to answer, is this project changing that? That is the specific, I think, thing we're trying to address, and that we've heard from you all. Christina, I want to just let you speak and get your feedback on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's this confusion, right? Like, yes, obviously there are perceptions, and I think we talk about comfort, but I think that when we're trying to turn comfort into a quantitative metric is where that becomes dangerous. Like, yes, we all want to feel safe and comfortable in our communities, on our streets, but what does that actually mean in terms of numbers? And I'm a little bit scared of you all putting a number, or like from 1 to 5, how comfortable do you feel? And those results being misinterpreted. I think it is, unless you're putting explicit numbers to those in the beginning of the question, that survey design can get really, really messy. And I think the other thing is, like, yes, we talk about our comfort, but I think often we have to talk about comfort because Dottie has said things like 4 lanes is just as safe as 3 lanes. It just feels less safe.
Okay.
Yeah. So and that's why I don't think I think we would call it a qualitative metric, Christina. And the quantitative metrics are the Dottie measurement stuff. So and it all will be looked at as a whole. And just to be clear, when we talk about and I think there could be some misquotes here, but about the 4 to 3 whole thing and PE license and things like that I was not a part of. But no one is arguing that 4 lanes is just as safe as 3 on Alameda. It is the whole of the project that we called into question when we look at surrounding streets and making sure we're looking at the surrounding streets and mitigating safety, right? So of the whole neighborhood, that when we say we want to make sure it's fully safe, even when we do the improvement on Alameda. So,
and I would want to mention too, for that community survey, we can show it
Oh, yeah.
a draft, share it with this
Yeah.
group
Yeah.
and make sure we can have your feedback and a level of, agreement that this is the way to phrase things and so forth. So there will be opportunity for input on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Lots of comments in here. So not all related to evaluation, but I think we can touch on many of them. So how much extra does it cost to use temporary paint materials versus just installing the original design? So
Yeah. I'm assuming you mean how much additional would it cost to do the temporary paint and then come back and do the permanent? I'm assuming that's like an implied
I
in
think
that
that's
question. Yeah.
it's from Amy.
It's about, I don't quote me on this number, but it's a very minuscule amount. It's like $5,000 to $10,000 more when it comes down to it. Maybe I think it's on the low end of that. Pretty minuscule amount.
Okay.
In our world.
This also from Amy, again, touching back on the side streets, we very much disagree with judging the success of Alameda's changes based on side streets. Next, does type and severity of crashes also include cause information, which police
Yes.
collect? Okay, as
Yes.
part of the record.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Christina, she spoke about the perception of comfort being potentially dangerous. So we had that conversation. How will you know if safety issues on Virginia are not caused by some other factor, such as a change to the drop-off pickup procedure, et
Yeah.
cetera?
Yeah, great question. First of all, I think we plan to be engaged with this group, and if you know of anything that might be changing, let us know. But also, I think that's the importance of our field observations. It's not just about the volumes and the speeds that we get from these tubes, and even the video counts that we do that are going to be longer term. We will be out there actually seeing what's happening. We also are doing, this is kind of related. When we do these data collection, we also, it's best practice to do control counts. So data collection locations that are in the area, not maybe influenced by the project, but in the area to see what kind of changes, or maybe just due to universal citywide changes or, more regional changes, right? And we'll be looking at that so that we can make sure we're comparing what we're seeing on these individual streets to what we're seeing in the surrounding more regional network.
Yeah, and for Virginia specifically, I mean, one of the permanent improvements is doing that signal work on Downing in Virginia. And so I think there is potential for us that wasn't part of our original plan. So there is potential for us to see some improvements there just because we feel like we are improving that intersection specifically, which had a concerning, I think, crash picture. So that may be good enough. We don't know. We'll see. Tatiana, I see your hands up.
Yeah, hi. I just want to make sure I understood what you guys were saying about like the survey. Does this project move out of the demonstration phase into the actual permanent phase by the success of that survey? Like, is it fully hinging on that survey? No, it's also the data plus the survey.
Yes.
But then the other thing is, like, the reason we got into this mess was because of a survey where a majority of those surveyors were outside of the project zone. So is it just like a free-for-all in that regard too? Like, is it just like, or is it similar to York where it's a broad, like anybody can kind of put in?
So I think typically in our surveys, we do allow anyone to fill it out. Of course, Alameda is, a main thoroughfare. However, we can certainly collect zip codes where we ask, and we typically also ask a question Of course, it would be self-identify those things, but we also ask a question of like how people use the corridor, if they live there. I think it's like if you live there, if you travel along there, if you work there, those sorts of identifiers, and that is definitely included in all our surveys. So while it's open to everyone, we do have the ability to kind of discern that information.
Okay, let's see, I'm sorry, I'm also trying to document the chat because we're going.
Sorry.
along. No, that's good. Okay, this was next about queue lengths. We'd like to see the observed versus anticipated queue lengths also be compared to current
Oh.
baseline.
Yeah, we can do that. We have the anticipated ones that have been shared before versus the baseline. And we can show that.
We talked a bit about the reference to Amy's comment, the 4 lanes are just as safe as 3. So there's some comments in the chat about that was a statement that was made. Agreement with Molly on the importance of the level of comfort and the potential for using the community survey for that, and that was important. From Jamie, I'll remind everyone that current queuing within the project zone is only due to 2 things: cars waiting to make a left turn safely and vendor trucks at Downing Pearl Logan.
Yeah, and we recognize those vendor trucks, I think, will continue to be an issue for the businesses, I think, is what you're talking about. Just the nice thing is down Pearl, we're adding parking for those businesses.
Near Pennsylvania and Pearl on the south side, we'll be adding parking lanes.
I think you're I feel like you're referring more to Downing, but we are adding some parking along Pearl that I know the businesses are really excited about. That should hopefully help with some of that loading, especially in non-peak restaurant hours.
And then following along on the queuing, Jill added in and stoplights, and Jamie responded yes, which are being addressed in the demo. The timing.
Yeah, the timing. Yes, maybe that's yeah. The signal timing is going to be redundant, be optimized. Yep.
More comments on Amy's comment. I think that's it in the chat right now, and I will, as part of I don't know if the meeting recording captures the chat, so I'm capturing it in a separate.
Yeah, and just so you guys know, on our website, we did update some of the FAQs. I'll continue to look. I'll look at the chat as well and see what topics kind of rose to the top, and possibly add that to the FAQs, just if there's a common question that we can help address. I'll add one about signal timing being part of the project. We will post the slide deck. We're trying to be as transparent as we can be through the process. Tatiana, I see your hands up again.
Hi, I sent an email this morning, but I'm also going to put it in the chat. We had attended the Inc. transportation meeting where they told us about a Telram device. It's a company out of Belgium, and basically allows us to do like traffic monitoring and counting. So it tells us the speed. Right now, 60% of drivers on Alameda are going faster than the posted speed limit. So I feel like this is a really great tool for everybody to kind of monitor on our own, and I really hope that Dottie, you guys will also take this into consideration on monitoring the success of Alameda, that if we can get people to actually go the speed limit, that would be really great.
Yeah, that is,
Great.
that's what we'll be evaluating. If you go to the previous slide, Molly shows speeds. We collect several different types of speeds, if you will, that we're going to be looking at.
Couple of other questions popped up in here from Amy. Is there an opportunity outside of the Alameda project to adjust the university light left turn signal?
Maybe, and I know Amy's not in a place to talk, but are you talking about the like eastbound left turn?
Yes.
Out
Yes.
of Alameda onto University?
Yes, there she is.
That's Tatiana. I know
Yes,
that's
yes,
what
yes.
I'm talking about too. Yeah.
It is officially outside the scope of this project, but we will certainly work with area engineering and we can kind of pass that along.
Yeah, we've brought it up before, but I will
Okay.
bring it up again.
Okay.
Okay, thumbs up on that. And then Masha asks, is there a contractor secured for the evaluation phase?
I'll answer that in two ways. We have a contractor that we have an on-call that will be constructing the demonstration project, if that's what you're asking. If you're asking about the evaluation of that, we also have a consultant, what we call our contractor on board to do the evaluation phase, yes. Just to be more clear and transparent, we are in the process of negotiating that scope right now as we talk to you guys, as we finalize this, and we will be finalizing that scope with them, but we are in the negotiation for that scope right now. Yep.
Okay, Tatiana shared the Telegram information,
Okay.
and then Masha had a couple of questions. Is there an opportunity to evaluate a left turn signal on Logan and on Downing? That's one question.
So,
Yeah.
do you want to give the latest on that? Sorry.
Yeah. On Downing, this was one of the first things we looked at 4 years ago with the Alameda land reduction project. Unfortunately, at this time, we cannot add in a left turn phase on Downing at this time. So that's why the plan does not show that. It shows pedestrian refuges there instead of a left turn lane.
And I can add some context to that.
Oh, sure.
Just because I remember this being a question and me asking the same question, Masha, it would involve a full signal rebuild because of the way that signal is. So it would turn this project, which was, $500,000 into well over $1 million, if not more. So not that we couldn't do that in the future, but it would just be a different pot of money, basically, a full signal rebuild. And at the time, I think when we assessed it, we want to see how the lane reduction kind of improves safety along the corridor, and then we'll assess whether we do a full signal rebuild and if that's something worth doing.
Mm-hmm.
But sorry, did not mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Yeah. There's some other considerations as well, like signal timing and things like that.
Yep.
That made that not a slam dunk to include into this project.
Okay, and Masha also asks, will the project be going back to city council committee?
That's a good question. I think that's to be determined, Masha. They don't need to vote on anything. So.
And then Amy, for the record, does not think it's right to only wait 3 months before evaluating Alameda. Project was delayed for reasons that were unjust. It's not the community's fault. So reiteration or re-upping of earlier comment on that. And question from Tatiana, but I thought that council has to vote on projects $500,000 or more.
We're using an on-call contracting mechanism, so council votes on the on-call contract and the capacity of that on-call contract when that on-call contract is executed, which happened years ago.
Yeah, so on-call means that this happens with a lot of our projects. We have kind of a pre-approved set of consultants, construction companies, engineering companies, that are pre-approved by council. And it's that pre-approval that allows us to move quicker, and have reputable, or companies that we bid these types of projects out to. So.
And Mark, this was a question that I think we hadn't really answered earlier, and we had talked about it a little bit more in terms of evaluation or pushing it to evaluation, what would have to occur to consider the demonstration of failure? So it sounds like few pet and bike incidents prior to demo. Are there any outcomes which would cause the project to be reversed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think, like I said before, one non-negotiable for us that would cause the project to be reversed is if we see increased SBIs and fatals on this. And then a second one would be if we do see if the surrounding streets end up carrying more traffic than designed for per our Denver Complete Streets guidelines. It's all laid out in there by classification, whether it's a local, whether it's a collector, whether it's an arterial road, and the amount of traffic that each one of those streets is designed for. And so if it trips those volumes, then I think we would also have to rethink some treatments. That doesn't mean necessarily. Doesn't mean necessarily that Alameda land reduction would be completely, taken out or put the partial back in. There are several other, mitigations that we can do depending on what we're seeing, right? There's other mitigations we might be able to do before we would even pivot, but those are those are two non-negotiables that we wouldn't be able to accept.
Amy, I see your hands up and your camera's on.
I just want to make sure I heard that right. You said that if there's more traffic on side streets, that might cause you to reverse the Alameda 4 to 3 lane conversion.
No. If there is more than what our thresholds would allow in the Complete Streets guidelines. So we anticipate that there's going to be more traffic on the side streets. That's the given. We've known that from the get-go. If what we anticipate happens, we will be within those limits. I will say that. If what we anticipate happens.
A collector, it's in the, I'm going to pull numbers from the air, but it's like 25,000 cars a day is what a collector should get. And that's completely pulled from thin air. I don't know what the actual number is, but if we were to see 35,000, that would be a huge problem for a collector street. So then we would start pivoting, basically.
So you just to clarify, you would do something about Virginia rather than reverse safety changes on Alameda to alleviate the side street traffic. Is that right?
Not necessarily. It'll depend on what we see happens. Yeah. It would depend on what we see.
I will say, I think that the likelihood of us seeing those thresholds are slim. Is that right? Am I fair to say that?
Again, if we see what we're projecting from a traffic volume standpoint, if we see what we're projecting for diversion to other side streets, we will be within those ranges, and it will not trip the need to do something different from a volume standpoint.
I think our bigger concern is what we've said our concern is the serious bodily injuries, the potential for pedestrian conflicts with vehicles, and hopefully not a fatality.
So I live close to the Sherman Dakota Bikeway. And I use Sherman Street with my daughter to get to and from school. And I have noticed frustrated drivers in the first month or so because they can no longer use Sherman to cut the traffic on Lincoln heading north. I've seen them be frustrated in those early months and weeks. So I just have I'm just going to reiterate that I think it's very concerning that we're only waiting 3 months to evaluate the success of this project and collecting data for, I guess it sounds like 6 months, as opposed to what we typically do with this type of project. I know you said this is quote demonstration, and that's why it's different. But I can't really, I don't know that I accept that reasoning there. So it's, I mean, that's just, I just wanted to put that out there.
Well, I think when we pull the data over 6 months, it would be a picture of I'm just saying an example, like the example you said. If we see potential crashes, or I mean, we expect some level of, hopefully not crashes, but again, some leveling of traffic patterns. And because we're pulling it over a 6-month period, we can discern whether it was all happening in the first month that we pull that data versus the last, and kind of analyze it from that perspective.
And I will just to clarify here, maybe to be more specific with what we mean by when we're doing what evaluation. Usually it's from when we say normalizing the traffic patterns. Basically, unless there's some really, of course, if we put things out there and there's like tons of fatalities because of it, like we're gonna do something immediately, right?
Yeah.
We don't anticipate that. But generally speaking, when we do crash analysis, we're gonna wait at least that 3 months. Then that gives us the next 6 months after that, we will pull that data. When we actually go out there to observe behavior, Amy, just like you mentioned, we can actually do that. We will actually do that further down the road. Like we can do that, say, next spring, right? Which will be 9 months after. When we say 3 months of normalization, it's really pretty specific. It's a catch-all term, but we're really talking about we're gonna consider that first 3 months. We're gonna make sure there's no major safety issues happening. That's our responsibility. But when it comes to actually doing an actual crash data analysis, we're going to look at the 6 months after that first 3 months, right? And then all the other stuff like the behavior and the volumes and the speeds and even some of the community surveys, we can actually do that later, and we would like to do that later so that more things can normalize. But just wanted to kind of clarify the difference there.
And the time crunch is, it sounds like, because you have to use the money by a certain date.
Yes, we do.
So if you didn't have that time crunch, you could wait for an ideal amount of time, 9 months, like you said in our last stakeholder meeting.
Still a demonstration project, so I think we're still wanting to not have temporary installation for too long of a time.
Yeah, but theoretically, we can push it a little bit. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what makes it temporary is the type of paint that you're using, as opposed to using the regular, like maybe the crosswalks are going to be chalk paint or something, and the lines on the road are going to be chalk paint. Is that what, like, we're using?
No, not chalk paint, water-based paint. Water-based paint, which is paint that we use regularly. It just doesn't last super long. So.
Okay.
Well, we have less than 5 minutes left in this meeting, so I do want to go over timeline and next steps. So we're here. We will follow up with public communication to the general public coming up. We will, as Brett mentioned, construction procurement is happening April, May. When we bring that contractor on board, we've decided the scope of the project. They just get brought on in an official capacity. The construction will happen sometime this summer. Again, this is just reiterating what we've said: data assessment and community surveys in winter or spring of 2027. And then again, we will come back out to you all with kind of what that evaluation says and recommendations on a final design. And this says just more details about immediate next steps. We do want to reiterate that the Franklin RFB, which is the rectangular rapid flashing beacon, which is on Franklin and Alameda, is going in as part of a RFB general package by the end of the summer, as well as those Downing and Virginia pedestrian safety improvements that I mentioned will also be going in at the end of summer. Again, part of another kind of package of similar pedestrian improvements throughout the city. And then, yeah, we'll move forward with the evaluation. We will be sharing kind of what we're thinking and for that evaluation piece, like the community survey. And with that, Rebecca, do you have anything else?
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we'll look at the chat, and if there's anything I haven't addressed, I think you all know how to find me. Please email me with any questions or anything we didn't address in this meeting that you are concerned about or would like me to know, us to know. And thank you for your time tonight. We appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.